a critical Saturday in Australia. The fate of two nations hangs on the next 3.5 hours or so. Very quickly, the qualification scenario looking ahead to the semi-finals. It's England taking on Sri Lanka. If England win, very simple, they go through. If England lose to Sri Lanka, they have no other part to play in this tournament other than giving Australia a passage into the semi-finals, a backdoor passage into the semi-finals in their own backyard. That's a fairly simple equation. There are no net run rates that will play a part here. It's the team who wins will decide who gets to the semi-finals. Also, very quickly, England's passage has just been made a little bit harder, or has it? At least in terms of toss history in this tournament. Win toss in Sydney, bat first, win game. Sri Lanka have won the toss, decided to bat first. So if England are to go through, they'll have to do what no team has done in this tournament so far. Chase, and chase successfully. Welcome to Cricbuzz Live. So much to play for. I'm joined by Joy Bhattacharjya and Michael Vaughan. And I'll go straight to Michael. England have been traditionally a side that likes chasing. But in this tournament in Sydney, it's not been easy. You're a little disappointed, or you think England need to do, no matter what it is, they need to get in there somehow?
I mean, England have become a defending side as well of late. They've defended really well in Pakistan, and obviously in the last game against New Zealand, death bowling's become a real strength of England. So they'll have to do it the hard way. Like if you win a World Cup, you've got to win by chasing. You've got to win by defending. If you win a game like you've got in front of you today, it's a quarter final for England. It's a must win. They have to win the next 3 games to win the World Cup. They're an outstanding white ball team, so I think they'll have the right mentality. I always think this England white ball group are very, very good on the pressure days. I'd expect them to put in a decent performance, but Sri Lanka batting first and then throwing the ball to the spinners later on, they're going to have to do it the hard way.
Yeah, I mean, it just becomes that much harder. I can just imagine the Australian team must have just finished either a brunch or an early lunch, and they'll be just sitting around television sets watching with bated breath.
Yeah, so far everything's gone their way. I mean, batting first. And, we're talking about Sydney. Remember, this track has been used. Sydney, they played 5 times. They've used this particular track 2 times before. This is the 3rd time they'll be using this particular pitch as well, which is important, which means that literally, when England will be batting, it's the 6th innings on this pitch that will be played. So those are the kind of things that, obviously make things not that easy for England. But England is a phenomenal, batting side. And if you look at it, the number of weapons they have, it's not just a Joss Butler. There's a Moeen Ali. There's so many other players, And that capability, a Harry Brook, a Ben Stokes can play it. It all depends. I think they'll look at themselves and they'll say, if he can keep them to a 150, 160, we have the batting. We bat right up to 8, 9. Adil Rashid has a first-class century. Where do you stop? So, they have the capability to do it, obviously.
And what you did see, there were no highlighted names, which means no changes. England have got a settled 11. Yes, they had a slight change in the batting order last time around, but we might see more of that this time. But importantly, settled 11 for England. In terms of Sri Lanka, just the one change, possibly even an expected change. Chamika Karunaratne comes back into the side for Madhushanka. And I think that was, again, Michael, sort of Pramod Madhushan. I think that was also along expected lines because the all-round abilities of Karunaratne have been very useful for Sri Lanka.
Yeah, and as we've seen in the tournament, batting depth, bowling options, it's so important. T20 cricket is about being an all-round cricketer. You've got to be able to do pretty much 3 facets of the game, if not at least 2 very, very well. Sri Lanka are a dangerous side. I'm really impressed with what Chris Silverwood's done with them since he's taken over as the coach. Obviously, the Asia Cup winners started pulling that tournament. Then all of a sudden got into rhythm and ended up lifting the trophy. I never expected them to reach the final 4 in this group because of the power of Australia, New Zealand, England. I always felt it was going to be 2 of those 3 that got through. But Chris Silverwood's doing a really good job. And they're a side that always... they've been going through transition for quite a while now. But that Asia Cup win was a big shot, which should give the team a massive, massive boost going forward. So even though they can't qualify, if they beat England today and finish 3rd in this group and above England, I think they can get on that plane home and say, this World Cup hasn't been too poor for us. We've put up a decent showing. It's always been the talk of transition since Kumar and Mahela retired. But this group now has got to start kind of owning itself and owning its new culture. And I'm always impressed with Sri Lanka. Like Afghanistan yesterday, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Pakistan. I just love watching these teams play cricket because you're never quite sure what you're going to see. You're always seeing skill. You always see a little bit of difference. You see a bit of mystery, particularly in the bowling department. And that's what England are going to have to put up with today. They will, with those spinners, find it very, very difficult. If Sri Lanka, Joy mentioned 150, 160. I think if Sri Lanka get to that number, it's not going to be easy. I think England have got to really go out with the ball in hand to be aggressive, to get early wickets, to try and get Sri Lanka to a score of about 130, 140. If it's beyond 150, 160, I think it's going to be difficult for England.
Just a follow-up question, Michael, on Chris Silverwood as a person. In franchise cricket these days, we see many professional coaches, irrespective of their nationality, going and working with other teams, Mike Hussey with the England team, etc. But as a character, sitting in that dressing room in Sri Lankan colours, is he the kind of person who will have that extra incentive to look over at the neighbouring dugout and say, look, I could be there, I used to be there, but now I've got a point to prove?
Absolutely. He was sacked at the end of an Ashes series. English cricket and, the way that the players had to go over there and the management in COVID times. Chris Silverwood, if you look at his reign as an England cricket coach, it pretty much was through COVID. It was through the first year playing behind closed doors, and then the following year it was like all teams, they had to manoeuvre their squads around because of COVID bubbles. So it wasn't easy at all. So, he'll have been disappointed to lose his position. He's a quality coach. And what I've been really impressed with him going to Sri Lanka, usually when you go to another country to be the head coach, you take 2 or 3 of your close staff members with you. He's gone on his own. He's just gone straight into the Sri Lankan camp, used what's been there before. Obviously done a very, very good job. He's obviously very, very respected within the group. Their win ratio is so much higher under Chris Silverwood than it was before. I like the way he just sits next to that analyst with his numbers and I don't think he puts the coding system in place, but he's there next to it. So they're clearly using a new system that's been working nicely for them. But he's one of the good guys. He's a really good guy, Chris Silverwood. And I heard Chris Wokes speak yesterday about him. He said, look, he's still my mate. He's still a good friend of mine. Even though he was the coach, he left us. He's still a good friend of many of the England players. And with that, it's your professional pride. His professional pride today will be making sure, if possible, that he knocks England out. There's no question about that.
Yeah, and Michael mentioned the numbers. You've sat in dugouts, but you've also played a lot with analytics, numbers, statistics. Joy, what's your take on Silverwood and all the numbers game?
Yeah, look, I actually am a huge believer in the numbers game, not because of anything else, but because they're not on all the time. You have specific situations. So, there are some, for example, if you find out that a batsman has not hit anything on the offside, had any shots in the offside for, say, his first 12 deliveries, you're going to set a field like that. You're going to decide that, okay, this is where I'm going to give him the ball. I'm going to force him to hit shots that he doesn't. See, none of this gives you absolute results. Once in a while it comes off and it looks like absolute magic. But what it does, in any game, the whole idea, say, for example, a football is, you can't stop, say, a great footballer from playing. But you can stop him from you can't stop him from taking shots also, but you can stop him from taking shots from where he wants to, in the place he wants to. And I think that is what numbers do for you. They create situations where you say, you really like doing this. So I remember the whole talk about Virat used to be, and of course Virat is such a great player that it's changed also, which is that all you do with Virat is you keep bowling consistently 18 inches outside the off stump for the first 3 overs in any IPL game. Do not give him anything close to the stumps. And the truth of it is, by that time, of course, by the time the bowlers figured that out, Virat has already become one of the best offside players in the world as well. But those are the kind of things that are important. And I think Chris Silverwood was very good at that. And today, to be honest with you, no coach can totally abandon analytics. Analytics are now an essential part of the game. How much you accept it, how much you use it is your matter. Some are more open about using it, some are not. But every coach today relies heavily on analytics.
And if you're one of those...
The only thing, Joy, I'll add to that is that, I totally agree. I love the numbers. I love, particularly in T20 cricket, I love the data. I'm amazed the ICC are allowing it.
I agree.
And the reason why I say that, because you're giving information to the outside world that could potentially gear towards match fixing, spot fixing. I'm amazed that they say, you can obviously code, but why don't you just throw it, go and run to the boundary edge and give it to a fielder who gives it to the captain, so no one sees it. By coding, I just think, the game's gone through enough turmoil over the years in terms of match fixing and obviously things that have happened over the history of the game. But I'm amazed the ICC are allowing something visible.
That's a fantastic point.
And for someone who could potentially be in the stadium and trigger it out or know about it or that's what doesn't sit pretty with me. It doesn't sit with me that someone can be sat on the obviously the dugout or in the team room and there's codes and there's numbers and there's letters that someone potentially in that ground or on television could be seeing, and it could give them an indication of what's happening in the next over. I'm amazed the ICC allow that.
Well, if you're someone who likes extreme numbers, then just for the record, if England, some of you are asking, can they actually top the group, or are we pretty much fixed that England win, they go in second place? Well, they can if they were to win with 80 balls to spare. So that's probably not going to happen. Let's just assume England need to chase this down. They need to chase this down calmly and make sure that they and New Zealand get to the semi-finals at Australia's expense. Sri Lanka can do Australia a huge favour. But other than doing Australia a huge favour, if we look back at Sri Lanka's campaign, which we know is not going to go any further other than becoming the most popular members in Australia at the moment. Joy, if they look back at the tournament, yes, if they do win, they'll finish ahead of England, which will be a plus for Silverwood. It'll be a plus for Sri Lanka as well, but they'll still be disappointed between what they came to this tournament to achieve, even though they came through the qualifiers and started badly against Namibia, and what they ended up finishing with.
No, that's to one side. If you look at it, Sri Lanka has a right to be disappointed. Every team feels they can beat other teams. But, let's look at it from a bit of a distance. They beat the teams we thought they'd beat. They lost to the teams we thought they'd lose to. That's a fact of the matter.
Other than Namibia.
Other than Namibia in the first stages. But in the Super 12, you knew these were the two matches they had a chance of winning. They won those two matches.
And yet they topped that group and came to the group they were supposed to come to.
So I'm saying that this has not been a terrible tournament. And with a young team or the kind of team that you have now and with Silverwood taking over, this has been a very up and down team. And they played with a lot of spirit, but they don't have enough really good players to give you consistency. So they play very well once in a while and they're absolutely amazing and they can blow out teams. But it's not going to happen that often because you don't have that class players there right now. Some of these players may turn out to be class. In fact, one of my biggest disappointments is that Asalanka, who's such a good player, has done nothing in this tournament at all. And they keep picking him, but he's done absolutely nothing. Rajapaksa, again, when he started batting, he hits a couple of shots. You look at him and you wonder, wow, this guy's he's the goods. But he's done nothing for them. Shanaka. And this is the big problem that they have, this middle order. Because for all their, problems there was, Nisanka and Mendes have given them something up front. It's these three who have let them down, really.
And Michael, if they look back at this tournament, we know what someone like Rajapaksa can do, not only for Sri Lanka, he's done it in the IPL. Asalanka, when he came into the Sri Lankan side, everyone had a collective gasp and went, wow. And you were thinking, what a stage for him to perform.
Yeah, I agree with Joy. Asalanka's the one for me that I look at. He's got so much potential to be, excuse me, one of the greats. I think he's got that game, that gift. So it's a night in Sydney that you can produce some magic. I think if Sri Lanka, as I said before, win tonight, I think they've had a decent tournament. But that middle order that we've been, I know it's a long time ago, but it doesn't seem that long ago that they had such a great middle order. You put Dilshan in there as well, the Sangakkara and Jaya Warden. It was just such a rock solid middle order. And if those three can just start to find a little bit more consistency, they certainly got the talent. But it's just whether they've got the mindset and the mentality to produce consistent performances at the highest level against the better teams. If they do, with the bowling attack, and that up top order that's pretty consistent, they're certainly going to be a force going forward. But that engine room is so important in T20 cricket. You need consistency. You need strikers, power hitters, and at the minute they don't really have that, and they just rely so much on the start, the opening pair. And then, every now and again, one or two comes off in the middle and they get a decent score. And then really if you look at Sri Lanka, it's generally the bowling that wins them T20 games. But there's certainly enough in terms of talent. Dhananjaya De Silva played well in the last game, so he's found a bit of form. and they've got the perfect opportunity now to get a score on the board, try and win this game. And if they win this game, I think they've had a decent tournament.
And then they've got bowling options. I mean, if you think of a used surface in Sydney, of course you want your lead spinner in Hasaranga and you'd want the mystery spinner in Thikshana to perform. But when you've got a De Silva, who otherwise is solid in the middle or in the top order, he also gives you the spinner.
No, absolutely. I mean, in fact, Dhananjay De Silva has done well for them. He's actually won a match for them, if you look at it that way. He's one of the players who's performed. I think those top three have performed. After that, it's 4, 5, 6 who's really let them down. And I think the other thing is that I would like to see Shanaka bowling a little bit more, because I feel that sometimes you're a captain, you're smart, you know what your cricket is all about. Sometimes you just need to contribute in different ways in the field. And I think he's underbowled himself a bit. And I think he has to take a little bit more responsibility out there, because I think this is a team on the cusp. If they can sort of win a big one like this, they will understand that, okay, we are pretty close to being a regular competitive side. At the moment, they're just falling a little bit short.
Well, since we are celebrating Sri Lanka, this will be their last match in the tournament. They could contribute, as I said, to the host nation and defending champions sneaking in to the semi-finals. We just have a little bit of a rapid fire for our panel right here. No need to give any major reasons, just a name for the moment. And I'm going to throw it at both of you, one name at a time. Michael and Joy. Which batter has the brightest future prospect? Mendes, Nissanka, De Silva, Rajapaksa, Asalanka? Michael?
Asalanka.
Asalanka, I'm just a huge fan.
Unanimous there. Which bowler has the brightest prospect? You could have Madhushan, you could have Hasaranga, you could have Thikshana.
Oh, Hasaranga, he's going to be around forever.
I'm sorry to be a spoiled sport, Hasaranga. They just...
All right, we didn't have to differ on that. If we're unanimous, it just means that look out for Asalanka and Hasaranga, not just in future, but perhaps for the next 3.5 hours in Sydney. Here's an interesting one. Which former Sri Lanka cricketer could have been retrofitted into this team to maybe give them a better chance?
Ooh, I'm going to go Kumar Sangakkara.
Okay, good.
Left-hander.
Perfect. I love it. At least once we don't agree. I'm going for sheer class, Arvinder De Silva. That middle order needs it. Arvinder De Silva batting at 4 would change this side.
I thought for a moment he was going to say Mahela Jayawardene, the man whose record of most runs at a World Cup was broken by the birthday boy, Virat Kohli. Probably a good time to just take a brief breather and say, happy birthday, Virat Kohli. I think everyone's celebrating that one stroke, but I think he'd just want the candles to pause till the 13th of November, if that could be the perfect birthday party.
Absolutely. I think he's just saying, thanks very much. Let's get this over quickly we've got a job to do. Let's finish the job. We'll do all the celebrating.
All right. We also have all of you there. I know a lot of you have sent in questions about wishing Virat Kohli on the show, and we've done that. And of course, once again, we can say happy birthday to him. But we've decided to pick a question that is relevant to today's game, relevant to one of the two teams. And here it is on #AskCricBuzzLive. And this one comes from Hariharan Sukumaran, who says, Hasaranga, we've talked about Hasaranga a lot, has come from a long line of Sri Lanka spinners who have had astounding success at the start of their international careers, but petered out shortly after. Can he buck the trend, or is he likely to be demystified too? And I know we're not talking about the class of Muttiah Muralidharan, but maybe there are a few others, Michael, that came along that looked as if they were taking the reins from Murli, but didn't quite get there.
Yeah, I guess Ajinta Mendes is the one that springs to mind, but to me, Hasaranga just seems to have everything. Not only does he have the ability to bowl different deliveries, he's a brilliant fielder. He offers something in every kind of facet of the game. It looks like he's a leader. It wouldn't surprise me if he's a captain in the future. He just looks that kind of character. But his bowling is wonderful. He really is. He's a fantastic bowler. And I'd be amazed. I mean, if he gets demystified, I'll be staggered, because he just looks the perfect bowler for T20 cricket, T10 cricket, 100 ball cricket, 50 over cricket, obviously Test match cricket as well. But particularly in the white ball game, where batters have to come at you, he's got all the tricks and all the tools to be able to bamboozle players that are coming at you. If you can just sit on him and have a look in Test cricket, you can do. Just have a look for a few overs. You might find that you could demystify him, because you obviously see more of the deliveries more often, and then suddenly it's not surprising. But in T20 cricket in particular, when you're having to go at him and you've got that split second to make a decision to strike the ball, I think he's going to have a long, long career, making lots of money, getting lots of wickets, causing plenty of chaos in many team rooms around the world of how to play him. He's a wonderful bowler.
Michael's just hoping he has an off day for the next 3 hours.
Correct.
No, look, I was fortunate enough. I spent a lot of time with Ajanta Mendis. In fact, 3 full seasons in the Kolkata Knight Riders. And he was an amazing character because if you see Mendis closely, Mendis actually, there was one particular Asia Cup that he actually tore that Indian batting side. And India in those days was a fantastic spin bowling, and they used to play spin bowling brilliantly. And he just took them apart. And I think what it is that Mendis had this big thing. He actually was in the army. He was in the artillery, in the Royal Sri Lankan Artillery. And he had this thing where his fingers were extremely strong. And if you look at the way he played, I think those first couple of years, there was not that much video on him as they had later. And once the video came out, the point was, it's an arms race between, what we call mystery bowlers and batsmen. And even that arms race, if you are not inventing new deliveries, or you don't need a completely new delivery, actually, you just need a bit of a variation on those deliveries. And I think in that arms race, he failed to upgrade. And by that time, the amount of analysis and video there was, they just knew what he was doing, He had too many tells. There's this thing called a tell. When you have a mystery spinner, you look for tells that, okay, when the hand is here, does he hold it in a particular way? What happens? And if you have tells, it's easier for the batsman to make out what's happening. So the whole thing about it is what is the most difficult bowler? The most difficult bowler to face is a guy who you can't tell from his action what he's trying to bowl. And I think they figured out his tells and he couldn't upgrade himself to the next level. In fact, it's a very interesting thing. They have a history of it. And, after that, there was a bowler called Lokuchure also who came, who had a bit of a tarnished future here and there. But he was also a very interesting spinner. Sachitra Senanayake was an off spinner, but he had also a unique delivery which he would slide in, again regarded as a mystery spinner. And it's very interesting. The guy who's just won the Booker Award this year is a Sri Lankan named Shehan Karunatilaka. And Shehan Karunatilaka's first book, not the one that won the Booker, his first book was called Chinaman, the Legend of Pradeep Matthew, which is all about a Sri Lankan mystery spinner. And you should read it. It's an absolutely amazing book because it's set in Sri Lanka and it tells you a little bit about this culture of mystery spinners. Because see, mystery spinners is the most interesting thing. Suddenly you can come out of nowhere. You don't need to be particularly fast or particularly brilliant, not even a particularly great fielder. I remember Ajanta Mendis was a disaster on the field. But, if you could bamboozle batsmen the way he could, at least for 2-3 years of his life, hey, you're a winner.
Yeah, there you go. Some reading material to look forward to. But at the moment, mysteries aside, England will want to focus on the task at hand. Just a quick reminder, if you've just popped in here, the toss didn't go England's way. Sri Lankan captain Dashan Shanaka won the toss. They're batting first, which means the England bowlers will be in the limelight very, very shortly. And I think the person who will be leading the way is Sam Curran. And Michael Vaughan's talked him up quite a lot. Look at that, 9 wickets in 3 matches in this tournament. And for England's sake, hopefully that's not all. How big a role, Michael Vaughan, will Sam Curran play if they are to keep Sri Lanka to a gettable total?
Yeah, I mean, if you just put those numbers back on the screen, it's the numbers at the bottom which are remarkable, and that's why England have become a better defending side. Look at the death bowling economy for Sam Curran, 4.71. That's remarkable bowling in those last few overs. Power play economy is not bad. 8. He's not bad in the power play. He's a very smart cricketer. He's very competitive. He likes to be in the action. He likes to be bowling when the pressure is on. He almost says to the captain, "Give me the ball." And he's certainly become that go-to bowler for Josh Buttler. When Josh Buttler needs something to happen, he throws the ball to Sam Curran, Mark Wood in particular. Those two as a pair are becoming very, very important because they offer that difference. Wood with the pace, Sam obviously with the left arm over. He comes around the wicket as well. He can swing it into the right-handers. He's got the ability, when the ball gets older, to take it across the right-handers and into the lefties. He's got those slow ball cutters. He's got the bouncer. He's got the slow ball bouncer. A very, very smart cricketer. Again, no wonder that most franchise leagues around the world are desperate to get a hold of him because he can obviously hit a few sixes down the back end as well. He's a good fielder. He's the modern player. He's the modern cricketer that is geared towards this kind of format, 3-dimensional, and just loves being out there in the action zone. So yeah, he'll need a he'll need a good night tonight. He's become a better defending bowler, but he'll have to do a job, obviously, trying to set the tone with the ball first up today.
Yeah, hitting big shots at the back end or at the front end, depending on what team he plays for. In this England setup, he's not going to be the guy chucked in at number 3 or 4, but in franchises we saw for Chennai, he was chucked in there, and that's been another role that he's played really well. And I think, Joy, it's a lot about the family culture. At the first time I did a sit down with Tom and Sam together, and they talked so much about father, they talked so much about themselves, competing against each other.
No, absolutely. That's exactly what I was going to say, that, your father has given India many heartaches in his day. As a Zimbabwe all-rounder, Kevin Curran was absolutely a genius. He was fantastic with the bat, great with the ball. Apparently very competitive in backyard cricket. When they came to England, they were extremely competitive in backyard cricket, and they've been absolutely the rocks of the family. And basically, just Tom has, played for England. He's also still very much a part of, their limited over setup. He's very much there in those top few bowlers in England. But obviously, Sam has taken those steps ahead as a left-arm. And I just love the competitiveness he brings to it. And I think it comes of having an older brother who's probably 2-3 years older than you, and you're always fighting to be as good as him. And therefore, that natural feistiness is there. He's fantastic. And again, also, you look at the number of deliveries. We spoke about Ajanta Mendes just now, about the fact that, he was not getting any newer deliveries, which, tweaks to his action, which the batsman had to learn. I think what Sam Curran has done in the last couple of years, whether it's, during lockdown or he's added a couple of deliveries to his arsenal. I've seen the way he swings it back is slightly different. His round arm, when he goes round the wicket, he sometimes round arms it slight bit more variations. And that's so key to this kind of format, because, they'll see all the video on you, but you have something which they haven't seen that much, you always have a better chance.
Yeah, which is a fair point. We often tend to associate changes more with mystery spinners, which has almost become the theme of this particular show. But yeah, even if you're a quick bowler and you have your variations, your slower ones, your cutters, your slow bouncers, you need to find a few other weapons in the arsenal. But yeah, if this show is all about mystery spinners, it always ends up being about a mystery question at the end of the show. Joy is in charge of that one. Michael loves to lap them up. So let's go for it, Joy.
At least this is a better time in the day for him. Normally we wake him at 3:30 in the morning. Anyway. Yeah. Okay, here's the one today. Which test record once held by Reginald Foster, Tip Foster, has been held by an Indian since 2017?
Yeah, I think when you think of Tip Foster, you start...
I know, there's one place you immediately start.
Yes, there's one place you tend to head. And so if you're jumping on Google, it'll only take you in one direction. So it's a matter of who gets there quickest. I don't know the answer, but I suspect I know in which direction it can possibly go. Well, it's prediction time right now. I suspect Michael Vaughan will probably just say 99.
That's what he'd like.
Wishful thinking.
I'm going to say 148.
All right, 148. I think that's probably a very realistic prediction, the kind of place we expect to see Sri Lanka. Yes, well under par. Well under par in terms of 188, I think, is the average score batting first. 187 in this tournament in Sydney. So that will be well below par. England will love that.
Okay, I'll go 157. I think this is a decent Sri Lankan batting side.
157. I'll just put a smile on English fans' faces. Maybe I won't be so popular in Sri Lanka. How about a real good performance from the likes of Sam Curran and company? Maybe Adil Rashid comes into the mix. 139. 139. Not likely to happen in Sydney, but hey, I'm just no plans to go to Sri Lanka in the near future. More likely to go up to England before I go there, but that's how it works out. Predictions in place, mystery questions in place. It's a big one to look forward to. Will it be England? Will it be Australia? The two teams that could have a passage. Also, travel agents are going to be very busy because depending on who goes through, the semi-final venues are going to change as well. If Australia get through, they play their semi-final in Sydney. If England get through, well, it's the topper in that group, which is New Zealand, who play their semi-final in Sydney. You figure it out. Travel agents are at play. For now, let's look forward to the cricket. We'll see you in the 10th over on Cricbuzz Combox. For now, that's all from Michael, Joy and me on Cricbuzz Live.